Then Yaakov went in and told Pharaoh, "My father and brothers have come from the land of Canaan with their flocks, livestock, and all their possessions. Right now they are in the land of Goshen." He took 5 of his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his brothers, "What is your occupation?" They answered Pharaoh, "Your servants are shepherds, both we and our ancestors," and added, "We have come to live in the land, because in the land of Canaan there is no place to pasture your servants' flocks. The famine is so severe. Therefore, please, let your servants live in the land of Goshen." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and brothers have come to you, and the land of Egypt lies before you. Have your father and your brothers live on the best property in the country. Let them live in the land of Goshen. Moreover, if you know that some of them are particularly competent, put them in charge of my livestock." Joseph then brought in Yaakov his father and presented him to Pharaoh, and Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked Yaakov, "How old are you?" And Yaakov replied, "The time of my stay on earth has been 130 years. They have been few and difficult, fewer than the years my ancestors lived." Then Yaakov blessed Pharaoh and left his presence. Joseph found a place for his father and brothers and gave them property in the land of Egypt, in the best region of the country, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had ordered. Joseph provided food for his father, his brothers, and all his father's household, taking full care of even the youngest. There were no food anywhere, for the famine was very severe, so that both Egypt and Canaan grew weak from hunger. Joseph collected all the money that was in Egypt and Canaan in exchange for the grain they bought, and put the money in Pharaoh's treasury. When all the money in Egypt had been spent, and likewise in Canaan, all the Egyptians approached Joseph and said, "Give us something to eat, even though we have no money. Why should we die before your eyes?" Joseph replied, "Give me your livestock. If you don't have any money, I will give you food in exchange for your livestock." So they brought Joseph their livestock, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for their horses, flocks, cattle, and donkey. All that year he provided them with food in exchange for their livestock. When that year was over, they approached Joseph again and said to him, "We won't hide from my lord that all our money is spent, and the herds of our livestock belongs to my lord. We have nothing left, as my lord can see, but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food, and we and our land we will be enslaved to Pharaoh, but also give us seed to plant, so that we can stay alive and not die, and so that the land won't become barren." So Joseph acquired all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh. As one by one the Egyptians sold their fields, because the famine weighed on them so severely. Thus the land became the property of Pharaoh. As for the people, he reduced them to serfdom city by city, from one end of Egypt's territory to the other. Only the priest's land did not inquire, because the priests were entitled to provisions from Pharaoh, and they ate from what Pharaoh provided them. Therefore they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, "As of today I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh. Here is seed for you to sow in the land. When harvest time comes, you are to give 20% to Pharaoh. 80% will be yours to keep for seed to plant in the fields, as well as for your food, and for that of your household and your little ones." They replied, "You have saved our lives. So if it pleases my lord, we will be Pharaoh's slaves." Joseph made it law for the country of Egypt, valid to this day, that Pharaoh should pay 20%. Only the property belonging to the priest did not become Pharaoh's. Israel lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. They acquired possessions in it and were productive, and their numbers multiplied greatly. Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. Thus Yaakov lived 147 years. When the time When the time came for Israel was approaching death, the time came when Israel was approaching death. So he called for his son Joseph and said to him, "If you truly love me, please put your hand under my thigh and pledge that out of consideration for me, you will not bury me in Egypt. Rather, when I sleep with my fathers, you are to carry me out of Egypt and bury me where they are buried." He replied, "I will do as you have said." He said, "Swear it to me." And he swore it to him. Then Israel bowed down at the head of his bed. A while later, someone told Joseph that his father was ill. He took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Yaakov was told, "Here comes your son Joseph." Israel gathered his strength and sat up in bed. Yaakov said to Joseph, "El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz, in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, saying to me, I will make you fruitful and numerous. I will make of you a group of peoples, and I will give you this land to your descendants to possess forever. Now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be as much as mine as Reuben and Shimon are. The children born to you after them will be yours, but for purposes of inheritance they are to be counted with their older brothers. Now as for me, when I came from Paddan, Rachel died suddenly, as we were traveling through the land of Canaan, while there was still some distance from Ephrat. So I buried her there on the way to Ephrat, also known as Beit Lechem. Then Israel noticed Joseph's sons and asked, "Whose are these?" Joseph answered his father, "They are my sons, whom God has given me here." Yaakov replied, "I want to bring them here to me, so that I can bless them." Now Israel's eyes were dim with age, so that he could not see. Joseph brought his sons near to him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see you ever again, but God has allowed me to see your children too. Joseph brought them out from between his legs and prostrated himself on the ground. Then Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near to him. But Israel put out his right hand and laid it on the head of the younger one, Ephraim, and put his left hand on the head of Manasseh. He intentionally crossed his hands, even though Manasseh was the firstborn. Then he blessed Joseph, "The God in whose presence my father Abraham and Yitzhak lived, the God who has been my own shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who rescued me from all harm, bless these boys. May they remember who I am and what I stand for, and likewise my fathers Abraham and Yitzhak, who they were and what they stand for, and may they grow into teeming multitudes on the earth." When Joseph saw that his father was laying at the right hand of Ephraim's head, it displeased him, and he lifted up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head and place it instead on Manasseh's head. Joseph said to his father, "Don't do that. Don't do it that way. My father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know that, my son. I know it. He too will become a people. He too will be great. Nevertheless, this younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will grow into many nations." Then he added this blessing on them that day: Israel will speak of you in their own blessings by saying, "May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." Thus put Ephraim ahead of Manasseh. Israel then said to Joseph, "You see that I am dying, but God will be with you and will bring you back to the land of your ancestors. Moreover, I am giving to you Shechem, shoulder ridge, share, or city of Shechem, more than to your brothers. I captured it from Emory with my sword and bow." Then Yaakov called for his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, and I will tell you what will happen to you in the Achet Hayamim, last days. Assemble yourself and listen. Sons of Yaakov, pay attention to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the first fruits of my manhood. Though superior in vigor and power, you are unstable as water. So your superiority will end, because you climbed into your father's bed and defiled it, climbed onto his concubine's couch. Shimon and Levi are brothers, related by weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let my honor not be connected with their people. For in their anger they killed men, and at their whim they maimed cattle. Cursed be their anger, for it has been fierce. Their fury, for it has been cruel. I will divide them in Yaakov and scatter them in Israel. Yehuda, your brothers will acknowledge you. Your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub, my son. You stand over the prey. He crouches down and stretches like a lion, like a lioness who dares to provoke him. The scepter will not pass from Yehuda, nor the ruler's staff from between his legs, until he comes to whom obedience belongs. And it is he whom the peoples will obey. Tying his donkey to the vine, his donkey's colt to the choice grapevine, he washes his clothes in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than snow. Zebulun will live at the seashore with ships and anchoring along his coast and his border at Zidon. Yissachar is a strong donkey, lying down in the sheep sheds. On seeing how good is settled life and how pleasant the country, he will bend his back to the burden and submit to forced labor. Dan will judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a viper on the road, a horned snake in the path that bites the horse's heel, so its rider falls off backwards. I wait for your deliverance, Adonai. Gad, troop. A troop will troop on him, but he will troop on their heel. Asher's food is rich. He will provide food for a king. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Yosef is a fruitful plant by a spring, which branches climbing over the wall. The archers attacked him fiercely, shooting at him and pressing him hard. So his bow remained taut, and his arms were made nimble by the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov. And from the shepherd, the stone of Israel, by the God of your father, who will help you, by El Shaddai, who will bless you with blessings from heaven above, blessings from the deep lying below, blessings from the breast of the womb. The blessings of your father are more powerful than the blessings of my parents, exceeding to the furthest and everlasting hills. They will be on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, in the morning devouring the prey, in the evening still dividing the spoil. All these were the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is how their father spoke to them and blessed them, giving each his own individual blessing. Then he charged them as follows: I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my ancestors in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah by Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought together with the field from Ephron the Hittite, as a burial place belonging to him. There they buried Abraham and his wife Sarah. There they buried Isaac and his wife Rivkah. And there I buried Leah, the field of the cave in it, which was purchased from the sons of Het. When Yaakov had finished charging his sons, he drew his legs up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Joseph fell on his father's face, wept over him, and kissed him. Then Joseph ordered the physicians in his service to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were spent at this, the normal amount of time for embalming. Then the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. When the period of mourning was over, Joseph addressed to the household of Pharaoh, "I would like to ask a favor. Tell Pharaoh, my father had me swear an oath. He said, I am going to die. You are to bury me in my grave, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. Therefore I beg you, let me go up and bury my father. I will return." Pharaoh responded, "Go up and bury your father as he has made you swear." So Joseph went up to bury his father. With him went all Pharaoh's servants and leaders of his household and the leaders of the land of Egypt, along with the entire household of Joseph, his brother and his father's household. Not only their little ones, their flocks and their cattle did they leave in the land of Goshen. Moreover, there went up with him both chariots and horsemen. It was a very large caravan. When they arrived at the threshing floor of Atad, beyond the Yarden, they raised a loud and bitter lamentation, mourning for his father 7 days. When the local inhabitants of the Canaani saw the mourning of the floor of Atad, they said, "How bitterly the Egyptians are mourning." This is why the place was given the name Avel Mitzrayim, mourning of Egypt, there beyond the Yarden. His sons did to him as he had ordered them to do. They carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought, along with the field as a burial place belonging to him from Ephron the Hittite by Mamre. Then, after burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, he, his brothers, and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. Realizing that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers said, "Joseph may hate us now and pay us back in full for all the suffering we caused him." So they sent a message to Joseph which said, "Your father gave us this order before he died. Say to Joseph, I beg you now, please forgive your brothers' crime of wickedness in doing you harm. So now we beg of you, forgive the crime of the servants of God of your father." Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers too came, prostrated themselves before him, and said, "Here, we are your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You meant to do me harm, but God meant it for good, so that it would come about as it is today, with many people's lives being saved. So don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your little ones." In this way he comforted them, speaking kindly to them. Joseph continued living in Egypt, he and his father's household. Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph lived to see Ephraim's great grandchildren, and the children of Manasseh's son Machir were born in Joseph's knees. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am dying, but God will surely remember you and bring you out of this land to the land which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov." Then Joseph took an oath from the sons of Israel, "God will surely remember you, and you are to carry my bones up from here." So Joseph died at the age of 110, and they embalmed him and put him in a coffin in Egypt.